But yeah, how fast can we get a garden up to feed a family? They're going from into we need food, and then there's going to be some lag time between the realization and then the movement until you get that outcome at the end there.
It's a matter of just starting by planting seeds. Even if you just do 5 pots and you get some seeds in there, start letting the plants be your teachers. Right? They'll teach you, because you can observe them and you can see if they need help. Maybe you're underwatering or overwatering, right? And just, I used to build all these hydroponics and aquaponic systems. I still like them, but I don't build them anymore. Now I focus on building soil. The money, the return on investment by building soil, I have found to be the #1 return on investment. And again, it depends what zone, right? Because everything starts with what grows naturally in your zone already. Start with that as the base. And that's where permaculture design is so helpful, because the designers, that's what they've been doing for decades, is they've been combining their information as they learn it and putting it into databases.
Check this out. Many people today struggle to manage their weight, but this is more true than ever after the age of 20. Because after the age of 20, our body's metabolism slows down by as much as 4% every decade. By the time we're 50, we've experienced a 10% drop or more in our metabolism. That's a risk to health. That's why I highly recommend adaptwithketo.com. This product works by increasing the ketone levels inside your body, which in turn support boosted metabolism. A scoop a day, I saw improvements for my energy levels while working on the farm. And the best part is I never had to cut out carbs or make other changes to my diet. And if you've been looking for a great way to support your weight management goals, you're going to love adaptwithketo.com. And for the next 24 hours, take 51% off your order, adaptwithketo.com, or click on the link in the description box below. And now on with the video. Hey, and good afternoon, everyone. Today I have with me Jim Gayle, foodforestabundance.com. Now, we've been talking about solutions on the channel here for a long time because the problems inbound are gigantic and something that our society has never encountered or seen before. This is even beyond a fourth turning into what I believe is a multi-millennia turning. And we've talked about that before. But what are the solutions here? You're going to need to turn your lawn into a sustainable food forest, or at least start gardens at the periphery of your home, herb gardens, thinking edible landscapes. This is the kind of solutions that we're all going to need to implement incredibly fast this summer at the latest, I really believe, and governments will come on and start to tell you drip feed that you'll need to grow your own food, because there's infant formula rationing going on across all the United States at the moment. And you know how they changed the lexicon from a limit of 2 into rationing just in the last week. So there's an uptick in the narrative that's going to go out for a fear-based narrative. Limit of 2, I could live with that. Rationing, oh no, you suddenly start to, a huge different reaction happens in the mind, the way you process that information. But also, it's really about helping people grow their own food, and then knowing that it's not as difficult as it could be. So, I'm super happy to talk with Jim today, that we can bring some solutions to you and to me too, because I'm in the process of learning. So for myself and everybody out there, this is going to be a great one. So Jim, thanks for joining, and the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you, brother. I tell you, there's Victor Hugo a couple hundred years ago said there's one thing stronger than all of the armies of the world, and that is an idea whose time has come. Now, think about the power of that. Are those just fancy words, or is that the truth? Well, based on my knowing, after 15 years being obsessed with the question, what is the idea whose time has come? And by the way, the question itself presupposes that there is an idea already in existence. And that is so true. This idea of food forest everywhere, or in religious terms, the Garden of Eden everywhere, is the idea whose time has come. Another way to say that is light mente, or enlightenment. This I like to look at it in permaculture principles. Like, what is the problem? Because in permaculture, we like to turn the problem into the solution. And when I started to understand the root of the problem, then everything became radically clear to me. And also, as Bill Mollison said, though the problems of our world are increasingly complex, the solutions remain embarrassingly simple. And that's what we'll talk about today.
So this type of information that we're talking about today, at what point might that be censored? Because I saw it was up in Montana, of all places, Montana. They were saying that your seed has to be a registered seed, because they were saying, well, there was like some ghost seeds coming in from China and they're mixing with the registered seed. And even if you plant it in your garden and then, take that to seed for the next year, it's still the invasive Chinese variety. And they're going to come, and they say legally they have the right to come and check your garden. This is where it's going. Montana was so shocking. That's kind of the bastion of what's considered freedoms here, but it's going down to that. I really believe that there will be control of food coming into the harvest season, but then if they're going to control you on the levels of planting your own food too, do you see that in the future at all?
Oh gosh, 50 years ago, Kissinger said, if you want to control nations, control oil. If you want to control people, control food. And if you want to control the world, control the world's currency. Kissinger's just not some random guy. This guy has met with every U.S. president. Why does he get to meet with every U.S. president? Because it's the same families that have been controlling the world ever since.
Yeah, stepping back to what you were talking about with the money, there's actually a real term for that called the velocity of money.
Yeah.
And think about that. That's like a current flow in your wires. If you ever been to a coffee shop where they can dim the bulbs and you can start to see the filaments within it, or they can turn it up and brighten it to bright yellow where it looks like a regular bulb, that's just current flow being controlled. Now, whether it be in cash or whether it be electromagnetic frequency coming from our sun, it's the same thing. These ebbs and flows, these faster currents and the slower currents. And think about cycles. El Nino is a cycle that we're all very familiar with. El Nino, La Nina.
Yeah.
Cold water, hot water. Well, it's on a cycle, and it's a known cycle, and it doesn't scare people that the ocean temperatures change. Then we have the 11-year solar cycle on average, 11.8 years. But that's a cycle also, solar maximum, solar minimum. But then we come into these longer, heavier, more powerful cycles as we're entering right now. In the beginning of my research, I was so focused on that 400-year grand solar minimum cycle, which is 1640 onset to about 1700. And then looking back in history, you see it every 400 years in great empires and fiefdoms, kingdoms. You can go over to China. But then I'm starting to look now that it's a much more heavier, powerful cycle. So you can see energies would change. And with that changing energy, people would react a little bit differently as well. So I think a lot of people are getting the message that something's just not right now, and everybody's starting to feel it.
Yeah.
And even if you watch the news, you feel it more. But even if you hadn't watched news, even to this minute, just the cycle of energies and the changing frequency around you, from the plants to the Earth's crust, the magnetosphere, everything changing that affects you as a human, a being living on this planet that's connected to that electromagnetic field. We're all feeling the changes. So now it's time to take action. We know the problem's inbound. Okay, we could talk 16, 20 hours on the problem, but we know it's here. Everybody can feel that it's here, and now it's time to actuate. So Jim, I'll let it back to you then there.
All right. So then how do we make the change? Well, it starts with creating a compelling vision of the future, a compelling, inspiring vision that pulls you forward because it makes you feel good, because it's beautiful. So what we, after my obsession, which started about 15 years ago when I red pilled, and I also had my first 2 daughters, and I also learned permaculture all in the same year. And so I went through that period of kind of struggle, which a lot of people are going through now, because we don't see clearly a path forward. And so if you're a parent, any parents out there, when you have kids, I started looking at the world through a more long-term perspective and asking the question, what's it going to be like in 20, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years? What's the world of my grandkids going to be like? So I went down this rabbit hole, and I started coming out the other side, realizing that when we design systems that produce an abundance of yield, then literally we can have so much abundance, and we will have it. For those who stay in fear and stay controlled by the narrative, they might not make it. Most of them won't make it if they stay in that frequency, that low frequency. And then the question is, what's the most strategic and logical way where I could serve myself while serving others? And that's how our whole corporation and this whole thing started. And even the word corporation, I don't even like that word because it's still a government-bound system. In fact, we're creating a decentralized barter exchange tool that is connected to food production. So we've got all these pieces of the puzzle, and everything starts with design. Designing your property to be abundant is job one.
Yeah, that's a big task for a lot of people to take in because, with the distractions up to this point, I would say there's very less than 15% of at least the US population, so I'll stay in here, that's ready for these changes or even knows and is really aware that they're coming in. So when the rest of that 85% get the message and they're at 0% readiness, that's going to be a terrifying feeling for them. But then how do we take that large task and then break it into smaller units so you can see progress getting done? You can see that it is possible, some yield, get any yield at all that you can out of any space just to prove that you can do it and continuously learn. But that's going to go from a huge overwhelming, oh no, we don't have batteries, we don't have shovels, we don't have soil, we don't have anything, I never planted a seed, what about the water, we don't have hoses. At that point, then what? You're going to have to, I guess, put a spreadsheet together or write a list and then go from there.
We know it's coming, right? We know this is coming because it's very clear to see how they've strategized this takeover. So then the question is, how do we serve the most people while serving ourselves? Well, that's where the opportunity is. This is the biggest catastrophe, but it's also the biggest opportunity in the history of humanity to serve. So when we start growing food and start educating our neighbors, because literally in 3 months, everybody could have food if everybody had seeds and had the understanding of how to do it, right? So then, and even in 2 weeks with microgreens, you can have harvests where you have incredibly nutrient dense food on your kitchen counter, where you have one salad a day for your entire family right there on your counter in 2 weeks. So start by buying microgreen seeds. Also start by getting potatoes. You could do potatoes in 5-gallon buckets, where you turn a bucket of soil into a bucket of food. Like, if that's not a miracle, then I don't think there's not. But it's mind-blowing what's possible when it comes to growing food. So be prepared not only for yourself, but be prepared to serve your neighbors in your community. And then the abundance will flow to you. Like, I've never been so abundant in my life. The abundance is coming exponentially, and then I'm turning that abundance back over, and it's just like this cycle of abundance because we're helping people see past the fear, see past the confusion and the illusion, and see a way forward that feels good.
Yeah, again, it's about the current flow. The same similar currents are going to stay on that same wire, I would think. Yeah. Now, microgreens and storable foods, what do they have in common? You're going to have to like the taste of what you're growing or what you're storing. It's useless to store a bunch of food and you don't like to eat it. It's the same thing with growing foods. If you don't like onions, then maybe you could trade them for something else, but you're probably going to grow less onions than something else that you might like.
Yeah.
But the microgreens too, there's a vast range of microgreens. And right now, I was at the farm co-op the other day and they had 50-pound bags of sunflower seeds still available. So, sunflowers being super popular. I've had good luck also with black-eyed peas. They come up real soft and supple stems, because a lot of times you grow microgreen, they get too tough and stringy if you can let them get it too tall. So, those are my two favorites that I would go to every single time because I know how to grow them. I know what they taste like. I love the taste, a little bit sweet. But then again, somebody who's never done this and just throws a bunch of microgreens together and go, oh, well, those beets are difficult to grow. Those chia seeds didn't grow very tall. Like, whoa, those are advanced. Hold on. And the taste is very different too. You get some peppery taste. So, and can I say something about what's in China? So opportunity, ji hui, and then the danger. Once you put those together, there's opportunity in that. And that's why they squeeze those two together. The thing about Mao Zedong also, in the Great Leap Forward, now he was responsible for the deaths of tens of millions. But here's how it went. The Great Leap Forward was the time in history when they decided to expand agricultural production, go into mechanization, and really bring China to the forefront of food production globally. But they saw birds eating the crops out there. And then there was suddenly a bounty on birds and sparrows and anything that was eating crops. Yeah. And I saw the most shocking, even just to today, not shocking in terms of graphic, but rail cars full of birds, because there was a bounty on the birds and you were paid, and then the village would collect those, and there was a rail car full of birds. You think about taking that out of the ecosystem, and then they had the starvation come in directly after that. But how does that parallel to today? Well, we're way short on the fertilizers and herbicides. Not that I like them, but traditional agribiz uses that, and they are so far behind on what they can put out to get decent yields. Yeah. And this is going to swing us into, right around May, when the crop, or at the end of the planting season, and then in July when the crop tours are taking place. I think there'll be a wake-up moment for humanity at that point on how much is not grown. Yeah.
And how much in the United States the government's paying farmers more per acre than they could get by harvesting their crop to destroy the crop. And they just took out 13 million birds. I believe it was somewhere in Europe, 13 million chickens. Right? This is insane, but it's not insane by accident or ignorance. It's insane by design. Anyway, I do see a bright future, and I want to make sure that when people are listening, we see the problem, but don't see it as only a problem. See it as, like you just referred to, as an opportunity.
So where do we begin then? Okay, so, watching up to this point, I'm interested. I want to know more. Now what? Yeah. Well, I still don't even know where to go to get seeds. Start at that point where they don't even have a shovel. Yep. They don't have very much room around their yard either, because whatever, the yard's not that big. Or somebody who's stuck in the city that can only grow in their house. I mean, it's going to take a multitude of solutions to move through this. So one size will definitely not fit all, but if there's multiple sizes, you can plug it in anywhere that you see fit.
Yeah. Well, let's take the 40 million acres of lawn in the United States. When we turn 50% of that 40 million acres into edible, regenerative landscapes that create abundance and life on every level, simply by using our own properties wisely, right? So that's number one. If you live in an apartment, you don't have land, I bet you know somebody who does. And I bet that if you said, I would like to plant gardens or a food forest at your house, I know a company that can design the food forest so it can be the maximum output for the minimum input, which is what food forests are. Then they'll say, yes, let's do it. Right? So you might have a lack of resources, but you do not have a lack of resourcefulness. And resourcefulness is what's going to get you through this next few years.
Yeah, before we were talking here on the interview, and I was stating that victory gardens were a nationwide thing. World War II, everybody had victory gardens for those 5 years. And the people at home went without the beef and the butter so much, so they were rationed. It's the same thing that's happening with infant formula now, rationing. But after that war ended, that victory garden concept ended with it, and suddenly the whole message in the late 1940s, going into 1950s was, there's no more rationing. The supermarkets will be full forever. You don't have to, scrimp anymore to help the war effort. So please just get back to the supermarkets and buy things. And oh, by the way, here's a catalog. You can order stuff from home now too. So that era of more self-sufficiency out of necessity to help the war effort just evaporated literally within a couple of years. Hardly anybody was growing gardens. And I saw those images in New York City all the way down. Well, but back then when they had the boulevards, even in the center between the car lane traffic, was all gardens as far as you could see. And an aerial photo on the top of a tall building was just gardens as far as you could see. Any square inch of land was used to grow food. And definitely we went away from that but we can bring it back, I think.
We can bring it back quickly, and more people are gardening this year than ever in history. So it's already coming back. We're past the pioneer stage. We're past the early adopter stage even, and it's starting to be mainstream to understand the value of growing food instead of lawns. The lawn is the biggest mass brainwashing scam of all time, right? It's the ultimate tool of enslavement. So if that's the problem, then the solution is to design your lawn to be productive. We launched 12 months ago with 3 people. We have more than 100x'd in size. We are now in 20 countries and almost every US state. We have the 42 professional food forest landscape designers, and we have about 135 cooperative partners around the world. The cooperatives are the people who are in the communities helping their neighbors grow food. So if anybody out there wants to be in one of the most important businesses in the world right now, it's also profitable. It's a landscaping business. It's just very functional landscaping. Then the food forest cooperative is absolutely rocking.
Yeah, because you talked about edible landscapes. So walk me through that. Well, so if I'm stepping outside, tell me about an edible landscape. I have my own ideas because, living out here where the Cherokee did prior, they sculpted their forests. They would, if there was something, let's say the blueberry plant was there, they'd clean out around the sides of it and let 2 or 3 blueberry plants grow. And they just kind of walked through and they were able to find what they needed as they were actually traversing an area. So give me a food forest idea here.
Well, how about I actually walk you through it?
Yes, do that.
Yes, I'll take you for a walk right now. So we just got a bunch more fruit trees today. These are going to be going in the ground here over the next couple of days, a bunch of bananas and all sorts of different stuff. We've got a little propagation station here where we're propagating a lot of the smaller ones. You can kind of see in there. And another propagation station here. Now, I want to mention ponds. Since we're walking by the pond, we've got a 6-acre pond. Ponds are epically valuable if you use them according to natural cycles and principles. And if you build in the systems, if you design a pond to be the most effective it can be in producing food, it can produce multiple times food per acre or per space as land crops can. The fish and the crayfish and the snails, and of course all of the edibles that go in ponds are just fantastic. So this is our 6-acre pond. And by the way, we're at Galt's Landing in Central Florida, where we're building a completely off-grid community and demonstration site. The first home we're building, our home is going to be a studio home where we show people how easy it is and how luxurious it is to actually be completely off the grid. So
yeah, no, it's cattail season right now as well. So
yes,
you're looking at these foods that have been used time immemorial. Cattails are coming in right now.
Yeah,
there's all kind of wild forageables if you know what you're looking for. And see, that should also be taught in our schools. Why is not wild foraging during spring so you can get fresh vegetables not taught in our schools? I don't get it. That's not education. That's something else when they don't even teach you about the food that's at your fingertips that grows every single year.
Exactly.
As long as you can find a chemical-free source of it.
Exactly. I'm walking over food. There's food all over the place. In fact, you can see some deer tracks here. See the deer tracks?
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. So yeah, I mean, that could be food. If you create the systems, you don't need fences to have cattle. You just create the food systems into your yard, into your landscape of your community, and you've got so much extra food running around and growing that we literally can be free. In 10 years, the world could be completely transformed into food everywhere.
Wow, with this system being dismantled in a precision way to cause the most effect in the shortest amount of time. Yeah, would we be, once we create this world out of necessity because of economic collapse, supply chain bottlenecks that are going to become permanent lockups at what point, if we get off and everybody is growing their own food, would the new system that emerges out of this, will they still allow you to grow your own food at the end of it? No, you got to come back on our system. You got to wait for too long. You were out there growing. Now you got to come back in. It's been 10 years. It's been 15 years. You need to come back to the reservation now.
So these are syntropic rows. It's called syntropic agroforestry. We've got moringa.
Yeah, moringa oleifera. That's one of my favorites.
It's the vitamin tree.
Yeah. We're growing that too, but we have it in 5-gallon grow bags, and it's not warm enough, but we'll put it out as just an annual, not a perennial like you have down there in Florida. It's too cold up here in the winter. So we get a whole 4.5, 5 months to grow it up here.
Oh, that's awesome. It's so good. And like, we've got this is Okinawa spinach, and this is cassava.
Oh, is that Gaynura?
Yeah. It's so good. Everything you see is functional and edible. Even these flowers, these nasturtium flowers, they're so delicious. Look at that beautiful thing.
Oh, nasturtiums, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And everything you see around here, it takes no maintenance. Once you design it and install it properly, then literally you could just have, this is how society should be, where there's just literally food growing all over the place.
Green papaya salad right there.
There you go. Exactly. Isn't that cool? So
yeah, and those milkweeds there too, they have medicinal properties to those. I mean, and the food's one thing, but thinking about medicinals as well, because what we had gone through in the last several thousand years is using our plants as our medicines.
Yes. Yep. Hippocrates said, let thy food be thy medicine, let thy medicine be thy food. Here's another one of my favorites. This is longevity spinach.
That's the Gaynura, a different variety than the purple. There's like 3 varieties of the Gaynura. The purple one, which is more difficult for me to grow. Yeah, there you go. And then, those 2 are different species there. You got that lighter green one. That's the one I've grown before. Also in a 5-gallon grow bag was that lighter green Gaynura. Yep.
And they're so much more nutrient dense than any kind of spinach, of course, we can buy at the store.
Yeah, iceberg is a terrible use of funds to try to put in. It has almost nothing. You'd rather grow romaine than iceberg. Oh, you got the mangoes right there. Oh, those lighter, those darker leaves right now, those very small, different discolored, you can eat those leaves when they come out like that. They're real supple, sort of a tiny wax on. Yeah, the smallest of ones there. Yeah, a lot of people eat those. See what I mean?
Yeah. And the butterflies, oh my God, they're all over the place. The other day I was here, I had some magic mushrooms, and I just meditated, and I just sat with a chair and looked and observed the food forest. And I saw the wasps and the spiders and the different things. And I realized quite clearly that the wasps and the spiders, they're our frontline generals. Like, they're literally there to help protect our food supply. I mean, of course, they're there for their own good, but as a result of them doing what's best for them, they protect our food supply. It's absolutely amazing.
A lot of parallels to helping people grow their food too. Yeah, that moringa, the miracle tree. Oh, you got that? Was that kohlrabi?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even know that was there. That one's
popped
ready.
up. Yeah, that's a good one to overwinter. And if they're smaller, you can eat the leaves off that and turn it into a salad as well. But they have to be the smaller leaves before they get too tough.
Yep.
So we eat when it's growing as well. And so kohlrabi is, you're trying to harvest the final, what you saw there, that tubular, but you can eat it, the leaves off these continuously, and have a continuous different, really nutrient rich salad all through the grow season in the year there. There's always small leaves on those things growing.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. So, and a lot of people have all these BSs, the belief systems, the bad science, and the bullshit about how hard it is to grow food. That's not true at all. When you design and install properly, then nature does all the work.
Yeah, it's getting that functionality, and then in different latitudes, knowing, which plants you can plant there. Because obviously, if you're in, let's say, Michigan, you're not doing moringa unless it's inside, and you're going to get 2 months to grow it in a bag outside in a grow bag. So it's all about knowing your species. I mean, there's a lot of stuff growing in cooler climates you can't grow down there.
Exactly.
Oh, is that a mint plant? Spearmint.
It is. Yep.
Something mint.
Yep. We've got about 140 species of food growing here, and about 120 of them are perennials. And then we've got a few annuals coming in as well.
That's the way we should be living. And it should be that easy to go out too. You shouldn't have to walk, to the back 40 to go get a salad for the night or pick a couple tomatoes. Everything needs to be right around and very functional to you harvesting that food to use each day.
That's exactly right. So permaculture, the science of sustainable agriculture, is about energy transfer. So the first zone outside your house are going to be the crops that you want to use, like the herbs and the spices and maybe the lemon tree if you like lemons in your water. So it's very easily accessible. The next zone, zone 2, is going to be your food forest, where you've got your, you might have to walk another 50 feet, and then you can pick just a variety of different foods. Here's another one. Look at this beauty.
Yeah, and a little insect eating on the leaves lets you know it's definitely not has any pesticide on there. I like to, you got a chameleon. Nice.
Isn't that beautiful? I love those little guys. I've been picking on this one all day.
Yeah.
This is freedom. When you can just walk in and you can pick a plant and say, oh, here's some food.
Is that sweet potato leaf there?
Yeah. Oh, there's sweet potatoes.
Oh, it's beans.
These are beans. And we do have loads. In fact, we have loads of sweet potatoes. By the way, that's my favorite. If I had to pick one, that would be my favorite all time as far as the ease and the nutrient density.
Really, how easy is it to grow? You have sandy soil down there. So up here in clay soil, that's a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your go-to? What do you see? So when you say nutrients, talking about any nutrient density in that sweet potato, how does that really compare with other potato varieties?
Sweet potatoes have more types of nutrients and more nutrient density than regular potatoes. And they're actually not even a potato. They're a different type of plant, but you can grow them indoors. And this is something, if you got an apartment, you can grow these things indoors with some grow lights. The cannabis industry has taught us how to do it.
How many grow lights would you need to really put a yield out for a family of 4? Because we're coming into times where supply chains aren't working so well, but did people get grow lights already? And what if they go, oh, honey, we need to get grow lights. And the wife's talking, we need grow lights, check. And then they're not available.
Yeah.
And, what's the price tag on that? Holy smokes.
I'd start getting the grow lights right away. Look at these are sweet potatoes. I harvested from this area here. I harvested about 30 pounds of sweet potatoes. Isn't that amazing?
So if food went down, how much could you really ingest of sweet potatoes to keep you alive and functional? Do you think you could use that as the base of a diet versus, I don't know.
Absolutely. I heard one time somebody said that the potatoes saved millions of people in Europe and Russia. I think it was during the First World War.
I saw the apple tree back. Oh, that's mulberries right there.
Yep. And
we're planting some
David
mulberry trees later today.
Was here yesterday. He's a smart guy. I love that guy. And he was telling me about mulberries can grow in so many different zones, and they're incredibly nutrient rich as well. Like so canna lily and papayas. So again, if you're in the north, like my buddy in Minnesota, off the tip of Lake Superior, he's got 300 different species of edibles and medicinals growing, and it's growing so abundantly that the animals and the wind and the rain are coming into his system, and they're planting food forests out in the forest around his house. So a food forest by its very nature is expansive. It's so amazing.
Yeah, and I want to add something about the mulberry. Oh, yeah, aloe there. That mulberry leaf, the leaves are a superfood, also very similar to moringa, but you have to get the younger leaves, and you can either eat them fresh or you can dry them and powderize them like you can do with moringa. So if you're looking at superfood nutrient density, moringa and mulberry leaf are going to be, mulberry leaf will be number 2, obviously, but it's going to be up there in terms of what you can get for density from a leaf or something powderized.
Wow, I'm learning some good stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, because I was up in Laos and I was traveling up near Vang Vieng, and they were doing a goat farm/renewable energy project up there. They were trying to do something permaculture mixed with renewable energy, solar panels and thing. But they had this vast area growing of mulberry, and A, they were taking the fruit, but B, they were using all the leaves to feed the goats because they were boosting higher milk production in the goats because of the superfood leaves that they were being fed. So they were growing that specific crop, not grains. They were growing mulberries for the leaves.
Man, that's fantastic. I'd
yeah,
never
and they had
heard
that whole circle going there, and that was up in Laos many years ago.
And see, every single day I'm blown away by what I'm learning. It's so fantastic.
Yeah, because I'm thinking there's many levels of how to use, if you need fodder for rabbits or for chickens or something, they'll eat those leaves as well, fresh.
Yeah, such a beautiful thing. Every time I walk through this area, I feel good. There's something so abundant about. Look at these sweet potatoes. There's probably 100 pounds of sweet potatoes right here.
Easily, yeah, because once you start digging around in there, they seem to just come out. Lots more than you think are there, that's for sure.
Lots more. I mean, look at this. Nature is so abundant and so giving that it's just a matter of taking out the poisons and the poison producers. When we can expose the ignorance of the poisons and the poison producers, then this will be everywhere, my friends. This is the world that we're creating with you when we simply step back and use these resources with natural, God-given kind of processes. I'm so excited about this. Look at the dill. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, easy to grow that one too. See, it's so I love it, just the way it's at the ease of everything coming up, and it's tending to itself by interacting amongst itself. You know, the plant roots are communicating underground with each other.
Yep. It's just so simple. It's like we've done nothing in 8 months. We've done nothing here. After planting, we've done nothing else.
10 years ago, you would have been out on the fringe and be like, okay, that's a nice little novelty thing over there on the left or right or wherever you're looking at it. But now it's becoming a truly essential part of our lives. Like everybody in the entire planet's going to have to learn how to grow food again. So I think we're spinning the clock back to more pioneering lifestyle days. And we're going to definitely have to learn what our grandparents did, from canning your foods to drying your foods. And that's just the world we're moving into. And again, like you said, you can, lie on the ground in a fetal position and scream about it like, oh, I can't take it. Or you can embrace it and be like, man, we're going to make the best garden we've ever had. And we're going to share this food with our neighbors who can't grow so good. And we're going to, that's the way you can frame it. Like what we're going into at this point is you're going to have to embrace it or you're not going to make it. And it's a lifestyle change of it's a mental game. And I've learned that, over these years too, of, picking up where I was and then moving out to the farm here and getting all this. It's a mental game of, all right, thank you for the abundance and thank you for letting me even be out here, because waking up and it's so quiet except for the birds. I mean, you just can't buy things like that in a city. No. And the food's so abundant now too, walking around. It's springtime. Things are everywhere right now, everywhere to eat.
And so we've got a guy coming here to show us what's edible on the ground. Like even dollarweed's edible. Now, most, the dandelions, the dollarweed, all these things that we kill in process of having a lawn that's not really edible. It's the ultimate. When we look back on these days of how we were mind controlled, we're gonna be like, oh my God. I mean, it's unfathomable from a perspective of consciousness how we've treated ourselves. However, that's the bad news. The good news is wake up and do it right.
Do you have some lead pipes I could borrow? We could irrigate with lead pipes. What do you think? Like, what I mean? Man,
I know. What? Isn't that amazing? Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, because dead nettles are out right now too, and that's another edible. Dead nettles, not the ones with the stinging parts, and more of a mint family thing. You're right. Dandelions. Every time I don't spray my lawn with anything, so everything out here is clean. Plus, it's like a 3-acre front yard. Who's going to take care? It's more of a, the orchard's out there, and then when I see the yellow flowers coming up, I'm like, oh, there's part of a salad, because I don't spray anything. And once your food source is clean, and that's another thing about walking around the pond. You're going to have to know if your water source is clean. If you want to forage for cattails and go fishing in there and catch a turtle or get some frogs or whatever, You definitely want to make sure the water source is clean. So if you're in control of it, then you know what's going into it.
Exactly. It's and it's such a fun process. So all of the reasons, the belief systems not to do this, they're all programmed, because it's been proven in different studies that the act of observing a flower or walking through a forest, especially bare feet, when you can be connected to the energy of the earth, that experience is the most healthy thing we could do. So, and literally, it's good in every single way to do this.
You can't walk with bare feet in the forest. First, you might cut your foot. Secondly, you might get a worm in there. You might get ringworm. How you need to wear shoes. You have to.
Yep. You put a rubber buffer that stops the electrical current, right, from our source. Yeah, it's a really amazing system that we're in. But now is the time to wake up past that and see clearly.
What do you think are some really easy plants or species that people can grow and, have pretty good success? Because I saw your apple tree there, and here in Tennessee, the windsap variety is what they call a no-brainer. Like, it's really hard to kill it or go wrong with windsap here. So, that's on the orchard side of things, or mulberries, or another one. But what do you think? Sweet potato you mentioned. Do you have a few others that just pretty much you're going to get the yield? Because I'm a huge fan of the perennial spinaches. And again, it depends what zone, right? Because everything starts with what grows naturally in your zone already. Start with that as the base. And that's where permaculture design is so helpful, because the designers, that's what they've been doing for decades, is they've been combining their information as they learn it and putting it into databases. So they found that they used to think there were 10,000 different types of edible. Now it's pretty much infinite. There are infinite different types of edible plants growing. We have no idea how many there are when you add on everything. So start with what zone are you in, and then find out. You can even type in, what plants should I plant in June in Minnesota? Or what plants should I plant in September in Florida? And if you want to speed up time, that's where design is very helpful, because the designers will take all of that knowledge and put it into your landscape blueprint. That's the start of our puzzle, is the food forest landscape design. And that speeds up time. That'll be done in 3 weeks if you want to do that process. And then from there, you're full speed ahead with the installation. What do you think about apps that are around on the phone to help you identify different species? Like, let's say you're walking by and you think you found a borage plant, and you're like, well, I'm not really sure. And then, some of these apps, you can take the picture of it and it should match it up closely. Yeah. How do you feel for that for people out? Obviously, it'll identify dandelions pretty easy, and probably like the top 20 that are really easy to identify.
I don't use much technology. I'm even going to get rid of my iPhone here in the near future, but I love it. I think that anything that helps us be connected and have knowledge of what's possible is a good thing.
Imagine how ill-prepared you are for a 3-day power outage, or intermittent power, or rolling brownouts, intermittent power outages. Like the disruption in most people's lives. Every time they go home, something reset. Oh, it didn't charge. Oh, I didn't have the power. Oh, the lights aren't on. Oh, the refrigerator stopped. I mean, just even these minimal inconveniences. So can you almost, front run that, slow down in stability of electrical delivery? And also, phone towers will have the same phenomenon going on. So the connectivity that you would expect at 100%, I do believe, is going to start to diminish, and there's going to be many more disruptions. So if you can, again, you can embrace it and be like, great, I don't even have to be on the phone or at work right now. I can't even answer a message. Let's go outside.
Let's go outside and let's start planting more seeds. I tell you, we've been pushing it really hard, because the investment of investing in growing food right now, well, I'm watching my bank account go down in value by 20%, probably in the last 3 months, relative to food and gasoline, right? So, but yet all of the fruit trees that I purchased have went up by 50%. So it's a no-brainer on so many levels.
Yeah, what are you seeing for food pricing down there? I mean, you buy maybe you create your own fertilizers or whatnot, but what are you seeing for like in a farm co-op, for example, if you're going to go in and buy XYZ in there, and then at the stores, are you seeing significant price rises where it's actually noticeable? Because before they were kind of drip feeding it up 1 or 2 pennies or up a nickel, but now it seems like it's up 50 cents, $1, and you go in the next time and you're like, whoa, hold on.
Yeah. Exactly. So what I see, my wife just told me that one of our main things we buy for our daughter went up from $14.95 to $19.95 in the last week. I just heard in Germany, their main grocery store chain went up 20 to 50% across the board. Everything in their store went up 20 to 50% in the last 10 days. Right. So if that trend continues, which it will, it sounds like, then we're going to be seeing hyperinflation, which it already is, but it's going to go exponential here this summer and fall.
Yeah, I really think we were at the cusp. Like, call it what it is. Triple digit inflation on some items, which is doubling in prices. Call it what it is. It's hyperinflation.
Yeah.
And how much will that really be worth to grow, a head of lettuce at hyperinflation? I mean, what, $10,000 for the head of lettuce? When we talk hyperinflation, we're talking these numbers. $1 million for a head of lettuce. Oh, you were a millionaire. Yeah, you were. So, I mean, you can't really put value on food at that point, because it'll be $6 billion for a shopping cart full of things that you're pushing through the store,
Yeah.
And then really
we're
going to be outstripping money's value. It really won't make any sense anymore. We're going to move to a different medium of exchange, I would guess.
And it's going to be, we imagine that it will be called Topia. Topia is directly linked to food production. So the value of Topia is directly linked and incentivizes food producers. So that is coming to market on the 4th of July, Independence Day. And it's going to have a major effect on the markets over time. It'll come slow, but once it gets adopted, it's a world changer.
It's on the blockchain, cryptocurrency, is that right? And then
yes,
you can use this. You can find buyer and seller, or you can find a farmer that wants to trade something using that medium of exchange.
And it's directly linked to food production. So Topia is minted in mind when somebody commits to growing food ethically without poisons. It's staked to food. So what that does is it double incentivizes food producers, which is what we need to do right now.
Yeah, because you got to think about the price of the food now versus what will be in 3 months. So
yeah,
if you're looking out at that, or even from July, I mean, that's where the next panic is going to ensue, is those crop tours. And then as we come into the harvest season and they see in October, it's going to be a scary one for a lot of people. Wait, can you flash back to that? I was looking in the camera at that point. Can you? Oh, what is that red one there?
Cranberry hibiscus.
Hibiscus. Yeah, I've had hibiscus tea before. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's so rich. It tastes so good. It got some sugar cane
and lemongrass somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah, a lot of lemongrass and some comfrey. Yeah. For biodynamic accumulation, and I mean, the amount of things I'm learning every day, it's so much fun to be engaged in this way. And so I encourage everybody out there listening, if you want to have fun, if you want to go through this next period actually gaining in abundance, then this is the business. Help people solve the biggest problems that are coming right now, and that's to be self-reliant. In fact, energy is another one. In the container, we've got a battery backup, and there's a new company out that sells these systems with 12 panels, along with the inverter, the batteries, and everything other than the racking. We had to provide the racking, but everything else they provide, and you can be completely off grid for, depending on your energy usage, right? But this system's about 15 grand.
Yeah, being energy independent is going to be another thing. Now, marauders, okay, so when you're walking by in a food forest, the traditional person that might be coming from a city to go look for food or steal food out at somebody's property is going to be looking for row gardens that look like a garden. There's tomatoes there in a row, etc. So what do you think about in the food forest concept, that a lot of people just walk right by the food and they wouldn't even know they walked by anything to eat? That it's sort of a disguised natural thing. Unless you can identify the plants, then you just wouldn't even know it's there, compared to traditional row gardens. What do you think?
most people don't know anything about where food comes from. They could walk through a food forest and they'll still starve because they just don't know they could reach out and eat incredible stuff, right? And these things, these are called rocket stoves. I'm actually blown away. I've cooked my lunch on this the last 2 days. It's almost as fast as a microwave, but of course it's sustainable and it doesn't tear the fabric of the food apart like a microwave.
Yeah, food nutrition and security of your food is going to be a huge aspect. So even the things that we take for granted, that food's always going to be there and it's always going to be at this abundant level and you never have to weigh, and there's always things there. Well, now you're going to have to move into a new world of thinking about the nutrition content of the dollars you spend for your food, growing it, and then protecting it because people are going to want to get it also.
And we're going the other way. We're going to share so openly, so transparently what we're doing that we're actually going to inspire a security team. Some people say, Jim, those big shots are going to whack you. I'm like, you know what? If they do, I've been on 50 podcasts and TV shows and radio just in the last 6 months. If they do, then this thing is going to happen 100 times faster. So I'm literally letting the transparency of our mission be my protection against these crazy people. And it's more fun that way. I don't want to live in fear of anything.
Yeah, they're just going to be hungry people, which is going to make them crazy because they've never been hungry before. So think about all these firsts that people are going to encounter. Like, what about your first egg? You know, the first time you ever got your very first egg from a chicken, looked at that and said in your hand, like, what is this magical gem here that was, you know?
That's a miracle, my friends. I mean, are you kidding me? I swear to God, I did not set that prop up. We just came in, there's 5 eggs there. That's 1 egg a day per chicken. Like, and then you can actually feed the chickens easily off of the things you grow and your compost. So chickens are phenomenal.
Before, you're gonna have to think about animal feed too. You know, you got a great point there of if you have animals, you're gonna have to continue to feed them through the transition. And a lot of people are relying on going off to the farm co-op and getting that 50-pound bag of chicken scratch, or they're going off to and, you know, getting the round bale of hay for their cattle or goats to nibble on, you know. But
yeah, exactly.
Some of, you know, even hay production for your animals to get them through the lean times. I mean, I don't know many people that have hay cutters. There's a select few that go and do everybody's fields around here because it's just more cost beneficial to sub it out to somebody else to come in and cut your field and then bale it up for you.
Yep. And that's it's a neat solution is specialization. It's also a problem when we don't know how to do things. And that's why our world is the thought processes that people have now. They're very singular. They're very specialized. Whereas in the past, people knew how to do a whole bunch of stuff. Our brains were the size of a tennis ball bigger than they are now, like 10,000 years ago, because we knew how to do a lot of different things enough to survive. Now people know how to do just a few things, but let's expand our brains again.
How many people percentage wise do you really think are ready to step into this new world without any guidance? It's like step in and like, oh, I don't know where, but they need guidance.
Okay, so ready without guidance, maybe 5%, but with guidance, I'd say that we're looking at 30+% that are ready to start and are starting to make changes. And this is based on the new people gardening and things around the world. So people are starting to make changes and adapt to the new situation. I heard this number. There's 30% that are kind of ready and kind of waking up. 40% are kind of in the middle, and 30% are just they're stormtroopers.
I go, really? Humanity can't wake up? 40% of the people sit in that state of numbness or whatever that is. That just okay, I believe it.
That's
because in a realistic sense, you know, you're not going to be able to do everything to feed yourself 100% across the way. Because if you were, you'd have to raise cattle now because you're going to need or goats or some sort of protein source in addition. And you don't really want to harvest your animals because you want to keep them producing, whether it be calves, because then those are sellable or tradable, or you want to keep the milk production coming. I know a lot of people say goat or cow milk bad. Okay, you're starving. You're never going to tell me cow milk is bad when you're starving.
Exactly.
Goats, you know, are much better for us. But again, it's the same thing. You know, you want to keep the yearlings and you want to keep the goats alive. You don't want to eat them for meat. You want to get all the byproducts that are coming from the goats, the milks, but you need to feed them.
Yeah.
Now, who's all ready to take these next steps up into animal husbandry above and beyond what is the food forest? You're talking a community at that point, not a single individual.
That's so true. I'm not sure if you know who Joel Salatin is.
I know Joel. He's about 3 hours from here. I was planning to go up there. He's just a step away from here in Virginia.
Yeah, he's amazing, and we're now collaborating with him. And
you are. I'm going to try to get up there and visit in the next 2 months or so.
Oh, he's amazing. And we're creating basically a model where the backyard suburbanite can have animals in a way that's very regenerative. So Joel's helping us create that. We've got an educational division of our company at Food Forest Abundance, and we're teaching and bringing food forests and these systems to schools. In fact, we just applied for $100 million grant. And our goal, in fact, if anybody's listening and you want to apply for this with us, we're looking for about 300 different locations to spread this $100 million grant and put food forests in 300 different locations.
Yeah, in different zones to see the outcome, because once you know the outcome in zone 2, zone 7, wherever you're at, then suddenly, can we do way up near the Arctic? Is there something possible near the Arctic Circle? I mean, everything's possible. We just probably haven't stepped into it, really examined it enough in terms of food production. Because how have we gotten to this point now with 8 billion people when we survived so many cataclysms in the past? 535 AD, you got multiple eruptions that cut food production for over 10 years. And, those are the kind of things that we got through before. So when we look now, if there's no major volcanic eruptions, but generally during this period of transition electromagnetically, we do get a lot of large volcanic eruptions. Aside from that, I mean, stepping through this one should be an easy one compared to get knocked back to 100,000 humans on the planet and then starting over again from natural causes of volcanism.
Oh, I just had a thought. My partner, Michael Hoffman, who lives off grid in Montana, just did a show on the Corbett Report about eating pine trees. He would love to chat with you and be on the show. He's a phenomenal human being that really understands things about off grid and preparedness in very detailed ways.
Yeah, because how many people are ready to go to get cambium like that? As I was coming through your page there, I saw that and I was going to click into it and watch a little bit later, because the cambium, it's usually a survival food of last resort to try to get in on the barks of trees. But I mean, are we going into a cambium world? Oh no, I'd rather sit where I could go pick something easily around where I live.
No doubt about it. No doubt. Yes. As a last resort, we'll eat what we'll eat, right?
At that point, if it does come to last resort, people are just going to start eating all these plants and that could be poisonous, and they just won't know. They'll just eat anything because they're hungry. And it looks soft, I'll eat it. Well, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Not everything that's out there is edible, but a lot of it is too. A lot of it is too. Yeah. So we have some crazy challenges heading our way.
We do. We also have some opportunities, and that's what I love to leave people with, is this idea that there is a path forward, and it's a beautiful path. It's not just this Mad Max thing. Everything that came out of Hollywood is about programming the mind at some level, right? So forget Mad Max. Let's think the Garden of Eden. Let's think Topia, not utopia or dystopia, because they've messed with our words. Both utopia and dystopia don't mean topia. Topia simply means top, right? So let's forget reprogram our own minds according to our own desires that align with regeneration and love. In fact, one of my favorite foundational principles is the Nash Equilibrium. John Nash won the Nobel Prize, and there was a movie called A Beautiful Mind made about this fellow. And previous to him, Adam Smith was the father of economic theory. And his theory was, if everybody in a system does what's best for them, that's the strongest economy. Nash added one simple thing. If you do what's best for yourself and others, then that will actually be even better for you. And that mathematical equation was in Hollywood, they made him out to be a schizophrenic. The whole movie was about schizophrenia, not about the incredible nature of his theory that won the Nobel Prize.
Let me ask you a question here. The speed from zero to feeding a family, putting out a food forest or building a lawn or garden, something like this. What's your estimation, really, if somebody's going from zero and they need to feed their families to get food production up in the best of conditions and in the worst of conditions, those two parameters there?
So my mom grew up on a farm in southern Minnesota where it was really cold. She had no electricity, no running water until she was 15 years old. Every spring, they would plant their garden. Every fall and throughout the summer, they'd harvest their garden and then they'd store what was excess. And they had enough food all winter long that came out of their own garden every single year. They also had chickens and they also had cows. So you can do a lot in a springtime if you put seeds in the ground. And then nowadays with grow lights and with all those other things, you can do like you do with the moringa trees. You can bring some inside during winter and, be aware that we might have an electrical grid failure as well in the winter. So that's another thing to consider for heating your house.
Small greenhouse, maybe on the side of the house. But yeah, how fast can we get a garden up to feed a family? They're going from into we need food, and then that there's going to be some lag time between the realization and then the movement until you get that outcome at the end there.
Yeah, totally. Bill Mollison once said that with the right techniques, you could spend 30 minutes planting and then in the future have food for 6 months. So it's a matter of just starting by planting seeds. Even if you just do 5 pots and you get some seeds in there, start letting the plants be your teachers. Right? They'll teach you because you can observe them and you can see if they need help. Maybe you're underwatering or overwatering, right? And just observe nature and let nature be our guides. And then we're all set.
So you mentioned that the website there, and you might have some resources for people to look at. Are those educational resources that you were talking to? Is that on the site along with, what's happening with the projects that you have ongoing right now?
Yes. Everything we do is transparent. Our business model is about inspiring the most possible people to grow food. So if you want to just do your own research and do this all by yourself, you can literally take $20. You can go to the store and buy the food you normally buy and make sure it's GMO and it actually has seeds. You can buy cucumbers and tomatoes and whatever you like. And you could then learn how to propagate those seeds, and you can actually start your own garden with no extra money out of pocket. Or you could go to our website and you could purchase a food forest landscape design. And then one of our professionals will work with you to create the design for your space that you want that will produce. It starts with your agricultural zone. And then the next most important is, what is your goal? What is your desire for your own yard? And then it goes into pictures and videos of your space. And then with all that information, they'll create a professional design that will blow your mind. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, because I'm thinking efficiencies and straw bale gardening. I wanted to touch on this just for a second. I'm going to try it the first time this year because I've never done it before. I've read a lot about it. Don't know if it's going to work. So I got a timer so I can automate it, because anything automated obviously is going to have a better yield, because there might be that day you miss it, you got it at the wrong time, you couldn't water it, whatever. But adding a little bit of automation into it to get those yields a little more dialed in. So I'm curious, have you ever done anything or know anything about the straw bale gardening technique?
I have seen a lot of videos, especially with potatoes.
Yeah, me too. I've seen it, but
I've never done it. Yeah.
Okay.
But it looks awesome. I love any different type. There's always a functionality of a particular thing depending on the context of the situation. I used to build all these hydroponics and aquaponics systems. I still like them, but I don't build them anymore. Now I focus on building soil. The return on investment by building soil, I have found to be the number one return on investment.
So what'd you find with the aquaculture then? It's too mechanically complex where things might be breaking down or the yields weren't coming out. And I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to that. Anything aquaponics, aquaculture, whatever it would be, there's a lot of moving parts to keep everything alive in that system.
Right. So I built one aquaponics system in Costa Rica where I had a flow through. I had a spring up in the top and then water tap for the community. And then I built a strategically located tilapia pond. And then I used that tilapia pond water to fertigate the gardens, which were below. And then the excess water just went right back into the stream. Those systems are phenomenal. I think the Hanging Gardens of Babylon were built on a flow through aquaponics system. But when it comes to moving parts and machinery, I try to stay away from that as much as possible.
Speaking of a flow through system, now those of you who like history, if you go back to the Kalahari canals, which was channeled off the Okavango Delta each year. Now, there's a lot of conjecture, and mainstream science would say, no, those weren't canals. They couldn't have been built 20,000 years ago. There was not enough people in Africa that could have organized that. Or there's a missing chapter of history, which it could be, because when you see the floods come in to the Okavango, the water runs down those channels until it all the way fills up. And they've rediverted, like you say, they've rediverted part of the Okavango Delta to feed those canals. And it's in the Kalahari Desert, and it's called the Kalahari Canals. And it's right up at the border of Namibia. Lost chapter of history, but something was flowed through there as well that was irrigating. Yeah. And it even has, steeped, and each one is 75 feet apart, and it's steeped up where you would grow your crops up there. And just, I don't know, looking at history, how much has been told or not, but I really believe there's a lot more solutions with frequency and vibration and, tech, yes, but we probably just have to go back to the basics, soil and plants, versus trying to get too high tech with vibration. And
yeah, soil's where it's at. And that's what our Topia is based on. It's based on building soil per acre and the caloric value of the potential of the soil. Soil's where it's at, because soil is earth. Like, build the earth, help the earth. And really all we have to do is just take out the poisons. Right? That's the thing. Take out the poisons and start. And if you want to speed up time, you add mulch and you add layers and you add different plant combinations that love each other.
So, overproducing food is going to be a thing too, because if you can't store it or process it quickly enough, you're going to want to trade it off for something else. Now, Topia that you mentioned, is there a white paper out there, a site up so people can see how the mechanisms, and is there a trading platform within it so people match, producer and buyer could match themselves in a local region there using these same tokens?
The white paper is done, and we're putting it to market probably on the 4th of July. And
on the 4th, you're waiting, everybody wait, you gotta wait.
I know. Our platform will be Cordal. Oh,
I know Cordal.
You do?
Yeah.
So we're putting Topia on a Cordal wallet. So it's completely decentralized. And then every customer will have a Cordal node, so we can create a decentralized internet mesh network. And it's going to go really fast. We just invested, and it's really exciting to see the potential of this. It's going to take some years to get this mesh network to make the other network irrelevant, but we need to do it. So we're going forward full speed.
Yeah, because I know a couple other guys, Mike and Bear, that are out west that are involved with Cordal as well.
I love those guys. I was on their show not too long ago, Alpha Vedic. Just amazing people.
Yeah, because we've done a couple of interviews way back in the day, and I learned a lot from them too, especially about keeping your frequency in check during these times, as because there's going to be a lot of scared and unknowns moving through, and the fear of really being afraid. It's not being afraid of being the news, but really at the point where things are so high priced that you actually get that fear where you're paralyzed by it. Well, your vibration starts to go out of sync at that point. And to bring it back in, Bear's always talking about, well, the way it's possible that people even, came through some of these famines by raising their vibration where they didn't need to actually intake as much food. And this is where some of the biblical references and myths and legends of others across different societies would come in, where those that were taking their vibration to a higher level didn't need that actual physical sustenance come in. And if you go through the, different cycles of the Vedas, we're at that high point in the Golden Yuga area, you literally don't need food. But it was all about at these tipping points where we're at now with, energy changes sweeping through our solar system. Could we tap into that? And could some people have that innate ability to come back as a survival mechanism? And he goes deep into these types of topics there, right along with Mike.
I love that stuff. That's where I'm really, a lot of my energy is going towards just understanding the potential. And then as I learn it, then I share it. and it's a lot of fun. It's a good fun process.
Yeah, there's a lot of cycles repeating here, and and I'm going to stay a little woo-woo for a second, because as we go back through, and whether you believe it's a myth or it was a legend or it was just a story made up in fanciful times because they weren't technologically savvy like we are today, those cavemen. Well, some of these stories of old were taking energies that we have been programmed out of using, but the stories remained of how it would help a society move through, or people being able to use that ability to survive through times, or take their society and civilization to another level in terms of cooperation or just living itself. And then suddenly, whoosh, they disappear. Right. Now, where's that disappearance gone? Did they literally vibrate out of this plane? Which brings us back into, can you change your vibratory state during these? Because there's definitely going to be a shift. I think the heaviness and that darkness is going to be so dense. I mean, literally like a piece of iron, and anybody that's vibrating faster than a piece of iron is literally going to step out of that soup into the reality around them is going to shift greatly if you can stay out of that fear, if you can stay out of that heavy soup of iron. And maybe that's a little off the tangent there, but
no, it's all so interesting. My mind is so open now because I have no more, or at least less governmenting than I did last week and last year and 10 years ago. So now it's so much more open to taking in this information and then discerning, does that fit into my thing? But like everything we've been taught for so long is so wrong, right? So it's like the whole thing we have to just relearn, unlearn and relearn.
And even if the solutions there, again, you mentioned that 40%, how many people would choose to not survive through it compared to turning on that ability or turning on that energy field or whatever you term it as? It's been quantified through history, different names through different times. They would choose to check out versus turning it on because they just don't believe it can be turned on, even though the person next to them and that person next to them both activated, and then suddenly they're like, no, I just still can't do it. I don't believe it, even though those two people next to me. There's going to be a percentage of that. There will be.
Oh, there already is, right? I mean, we see it every day when we're talking to our friends, the people we love and care about, who just will not see it. And I'm trying all these I'm always trying new ways to get in there and to open up their minds, right? And sometimes it works. I never quit. And some of them think I'm crazy, and some don't even want to talk to me anymore. Some good friends like, Jim, I don't really want to talk to you, because I challenge their foundational belief systems of how this world operates. And it doesn't feel comfortable for them. So they would just rather not talk to me. Okay, I'll keep trying though, because I love them.
Yeah, they'll come around. And, in the beginning, when I started my channel back in 2014, people, again, they're like, this, you're out there in left field by yourself, my man. And then suddenly I got the same people calling me back going, you remember when you told me this? Can you tell me a little more? It's like, you get these strange messages starting to drip in now of people that, like you're talking about, have disconnected or said, can't listen to it. You're too negative. You're too this, you're too that. Now suddenly they're swinging back when they're starting to see that you're going to be the hope for their survival, especially being able to put out edible food forests and edible landscapes and that sort of thing at the periphery of their homes. That's going to be a valuable one right there for sure.
Yes. This business, the Food Forest Cooperative, we're a co-op. And it's so much fun because everybody who comes aboard adds their bit of understanding and knowledge and ideas and techniques. And there's so much out there that let's come together for one. I don't really feel good about the idea of like-minded. Right? I don't want to be with people that are like-minded. I want to be with people that are diverse-minded with one common mindset, and that's freedom. Right? I do not do business with people who advocate for force and violence and enslavement. Everybody else, come on and let's talk. If you're about, the voluntarism and voluntary exchange of value, then let's play.
It's going to have to go that way. The entire way we've been brought up and structured of it's mine, it's my house, get off my land, or, that's my job. You interfered with my job. I didn't get the raise. These whole things of mine is definitely going to start to shift, because being a fan of history, I like to read about how people were able to make it through the Great Depression. And those of you out there who think you're going to go hunting for deer out during this next massive depression that we're coming into, The forest was hunted out in the 1930s during the Depression, where it cost them more resources to go in to get the deer because they were so far back in there because they ran that it wasn't worth it to go in and go hunting anymore. That was in the 1930s. Now put that in your mind. And what I started to know is that families really started to come together and help each other.
Yeah.
Those that had more on the city block would give to those who had less, or they knew it was a hungry family. Like things would just appear on the doorsteps of people helping. But then it started to, morph into something on its own where it was a community helping. So if somebody needed help with, like, you have some woodworking there, and a lot of people don't know woodworking. And then it was like, oh, I'll help you over there build this. And just like the Amish similarly do today, they help each other with all the skills that are needed. And that's really what it will be about, is even if you don't know how to can your food, somebody in your community would. But if you had another skill to offer and trade and barter of time, and I heard something called a time bank one time, where you're a doctor, or you're a dentist, you can trade your 1 hour because it's just time compared to somebody who did woodworking or watch repair. It's just 1 hour. So everybody did their thing. So you repaired a watch, you went in and got a free dental cleaning or whatever it was for 1 hour. And I think we're going to be, now that's technological today, where you can, itemize that and do that swap. But, back in the 1930s, it was all about community helping each other when anybody needed help. Yeah. Is that really too out there, or do you think society is going to move that way, or,
I think that this idea of the Nash Equilibrium, when people do what's best for themselves and others, I think it's just going to be natural and very much just common to serve, because at the end of the day, the more we give, especially when we give wisely, the more we receive. And then the more we receive, like, I don't want to be a freaking guy with billions of dollars in a bank account. That represents scarcity to me. Like, why would I do that when that billions of dollars could literally change the world? In fact, Elon Musk and this guy from the UN were having a debate online. It was probably a big scam, but they were talking about if the guy said, if Elon gave up 2% of his wealth, we could end world hunger. Well, Elon said, okay, you show me how and I'll do it. Now, I don't trust Elon one bit. I think he's part of the system. But the point is, I did a video that got seen by like 20 or 30,000 people. I said, Elon, for $6 billion, which is 2% of his net worth, here's the exact strategy to end world hunger. We put $1 million food forests with educational systems in 6,000 of the world's biggest cities, and we end world hunger in 3 years.
But you end the system that controls that delivery of food as well, because autonomy, then that's the first. Oh, we can do that. Well, what else can we become autonomous from as well? Then they start making a checklist. Here we go.
Yeah.
Fuel next. See you later. Electricity. Hey, Tesla.
Yeah.
And it can go on and on.
On and on. This solves the plastic issue in the oceans. This solves the transportation issue. All of the issues, even the bullshit issues that they're talking about, this solves them, even though they're not really issues. Literally, when we grow food instead of lawns, we solve all of it.
Now, if you're just catching us in the last few minutes or so, here with Jim Gayle, foodforestabundance.com. You want to jump over to the site, check out what they're working on, and the blueprints for the food forest sound really good, because you're integrating now where people are sort of self-sufficient. If they're at that point where they want to get the blueprints, obviously they know how to grow some food and they're willing to try to put it out themselves. And again, a shout out to Alpha Vedic over there with Mike Winter and Bear Lando, because everybody's doing their part. Joel Salatin as well. I learned from all these people myself to try to implement, because I do have some experience of it, so I can try things. If it fails, great, I learned something from it. But Jim, I appreciate you coming on. Any last words to push us out of here? Please tell us how people can get a hold of you, and if they really want to take steps forward, what's the next step for them?
It's cool. Well, thank you, my friend, first for having me on the show to expose this message to more people. And if you want to email me directly, it's jim@foodforestabundance.com. You can check out our website, foodforestabundance.com. And we have an abundance ambassador program. We went in 90 days. We went from 0 to 500. We've got one of the fastest growing cooperatives in the world right now, and it's all about inspiring and empowering people to grow food. So if you want to be a part of this, it's a lot of fun, and I invite you to join us.
All right. So I would challenge everybody out there today. Weekend's coming. Put something in the ground. Plant something this weekend. That would be my challenge, is at least visit a store, buy some seeds, and do something growing your own food by the end of this week.
Awesome.
Thanks for watching. Bye for now.